Hey there, welcome to Cosmic Confessions, a podcast by your spiritual besties.
I'm Alex.
I'm Avrey.
And I'm Melissa.
Coming at you unhinged,
unfiltered,
and unedited.
Join us on this journey as we explore the profound,
the practical,
and the unlimited potential within us.
Let's awaken our spirits, ignite our passions, and elevate our lives together as the universe speaks and we listen.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Cosmic Confessions. We have a super juicy episode headed your way today, and of course, as always, we're going to start with our confession. Avrey?
All right, today's confession was inspired by a quote that I saw, and the confession is that we are not always love and light. And it comes from this quote that I sent the girls, and it said, "The spiritual community pushes this narrative of love and light so strongly and neglects to explain that you must enter the darkness to reach that love and light. If you're not acknowledging these negative parts of you, you practice surface level healing," which is not going to get you anywhere. And I know for me, when the first time that I heard this was when someone was like, "Oh, you're so spiritual. Why are you being a bitch?" And that's when I was like, oh no, am I mean? Or are these boundaries? Yeah. So, and you guys being like the therapist, I think you should riff off of that.
Would you like to start? Our Scorpio friend here.
Yeah, who I'm all about the darkness. So I love the darkness because that's where we create the most growth. And I think that in the spiritual community, it is really hard because you come into this space of trying to learn about yourself and trying to heal, but then you're having this kind of force and pressure and expectation for things to always be love and light and for things to be like happy and everything's good and great and life is beautiful. And it's like, wait a second. Life is actually, there's so much beauty, but then there's also so much pain and so much sadness. And in order to truly experience the beauty and the pleasure and actually enjoy life for what it is and feel that sense of fulfillment, you first have to look at your shadows and heal the pain and heal the sadness, heal the trauma in order to really be able to embrace all that you are. And I think that when we can kind of peel off that layer and even that lens that we have to be perfect and put together all the time, I think that that's when our authentic and raw version actually comes out and is really allowed to play. And that's where we really feel connected and we start to actually understand our purpose here.
So, yeah, that was said beautifully. And I think you call me out on that a lot.
Yeah.
When I get confused of am I being mean?
Yeah.
Both of them. We should post screenshots of our
of
our group chat.
Great promo.
Yeah.
Because it's true. I'm always I just let things go off my shoulders sometimes, and I was entering this period of my life where I'm meditating or I'm doing yoga or I'm healing, but then why am I getting irritable and angry at people? And I'm oh man, I think that's just I'm just trying to create boundaries, and at first I didn't know how. I didn't know how to do it, and it wasn't until Melissa, you explained a great analogy for boundaries with me, the fence analogy you gave me. That was I don't know if you want to share, but that was really helpful for me. And I'm oh, I can be love and light. I am spiritual, but that doesn't mean people are allowed to just use that and leech onto that. So.
And I think and then I'm going to hand you the mic. I think also for me, something that I'm so on top of with my clients and really helping them understand and grasp is the idea that all of our emotions are serving a purpose, right? So we're living in a society where we're told to push down the anger, to push down the sadness, to ignore and reject and suppress. And it's these emotions, the reason we feel them is because they're trying to tell us something. They're trying to signal to us, right? It's imagine being in a car and you have the gas tank empty and that light is flashing on you. You're not going to put happy stickers over it and pretend you're not running out of gas.
Oh my God, I love that.
Right?
But truly, how can you be happy and love all the time?
Exactly. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's you're on this roller coaster of life, and there's going to be beautiful highs where you're at the peak of that roller coaster, and you are looking at all the views, and you're soaking it all up, and you're enjoying it. But that roller coaster has to come down in order to gain momentum to go back up. right? It is this ebb and flow. It's the yin and the yang. It is the balance of life. And I think that when we can start to understand that our emotions aren't trying to hurt us, they're not evil, they're not bad, they're actually serving a purpose to teach us and to help us learn more about ourselves, I think the quicker we can actually jump into the healing work to create literal fulfillment. But I would love to hear your take on boundaries.
It helps so much, the fence.
Yeah.
The fence
I love this conversation so much today because, and I'm going to speak to the fence, the whole fence boundary analogy, but also it's just the duality of just like the human condition and like the human experience, right? It's the roller coaster. It's the ups and the downs. And I think when you first start your spiritual journey, especially if you get interested in some of the new agey stuff or like the metaphysics, like there's kind of this over consumption of like the positive and the highlights and the high vibe and the good vibes only like slogans, like all the things, but it's just not the reality of like the condition of being human. It's both sides of the coin, right? There's always light and there's always shadow. So I love the deeper principle here of like duality. I mean, we live in a universe of duality. It's not as above, so below, as within, so without. It's always, you know, it's always seeking to find balance. Like we live in a universe that's always seeking out balance. So as much as there is like maybe crap going on in your life or like along your journey in whatever season you're in right now, well, listen, there's an equal measure good things coming your way and light, and there is love too. So I love the duality like simmering underneath the surface here. But anyway, let's go back to boundaries.
Please,
people pleasing, all the juice, right? So the thing about boundaries, and I guess this is like another principle that this podcast episode is going to speak to, right, is that especially in the spiritual community, I don't know where this like came onto the fields with this stuff, but there's this idea that like there's this assumption that everyone should know my boundary. Like there's this assumption that, hey, because you're a spiritual person, you know, you should kind of like have like good boundaries, you know, or like, you know what I'm saying? So it's our job, it's our responsibility to take ownership and authority of our own life and what those boundaries are. So the image that always came to mind for me was a fence line, right? Like you're not going to assume that your neighbor across the street is going to put a fence on your property line. No. Like that's your job to do that. And it's your job to instill. And it's also your job to say who is allowed on your property, who's not allowed on your property. Do you have, you know, some pockets of open fence line? Is it like barbed wire? Is it, you know, like what is the permeable membrane that allows people to come in and out? But I think that's like one of these like things that I see happening in like a lot of spiritual communities. It's like, oh, just because you're like into all like meditation and like love and light that you're gonna like have healthy boundaries. Like no, like that's my job to put up that fence line, not my neighbor's job. That's my job. And it's my job to say, hey, I see you're encroaching here. That's okay, but that's not okay. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not another person's job. That's your job. And that doesn't make you a bad person. That just means that you have energetic sovereignty over your energy, your body, your property, maybe literally. You know, it's like that's our job. And that doesn't mean you're not a spiritual person. If anything, I think it's the opposite of that. I think it's the antithesis of that, because how I see boundaries is a way for you to maintain a connection with another person. And I think what happens is when the recipient of a healthy boundary hasn't like done the work or done the shadow work, right, that you do so often with people, they get triggered. And what I try to explain to people, where in my life I've had to set healthy boundaries and they like have a tantrum about it and they freak out. And it's like, I'm like, oh my gosh, no. This is a way for you to stay my neighbor. This is a way for you to still come on my property. But in the way that's healthy for both parties here, right? Not just your way, but my way too, and hopefully our way in the future. Like boundaries are a way for you to maintain a connection with someone, to honor that other person, and then honor yourself, which honestly, I think is like the deepest spiritual work that you can ever do. I'll never forget one last thing, and then I'm going to hand the mic over. One of the most powerful things a spiritual mentor ever told me in my life, and this was my yoga teacher, Danielle Tarantolis. If you're watching, this always has stuck with me. When I did my yoga teacher training, she always taught me that the work that you do on the mat never counts. It's always what you do off of the mat, and more so what her guru and mentor always told her was that I know how spiritual you are based on the relationships in your life. Asking the closest people around you how you treat them. And honestly, boundaries are a way for you to maintain healthy connections with the people that you love in your life. And it doesn't mean you're not spiritual.
Yeah.
It means that you actually honor the other people in your life so much so that you want to maintain a healthy connection with them.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that was really beautiful. I love the yoga reference. Yeah. But so the first time I heard this, I was having a new moon ceremony at the place that I do energy healing with, and you presented that analogy there. And it was so nice because, like, that week, my sister and I were having an issue with, like, a family member, and I was like, just barbed wire it. Just make it a barbed wire fence. Like, you have to totally, like, that's like a, I'm done here, right? And it's like, you know, sometimes it's the half-white picket fence. So it's like, you could see me. We can have, like, a sort of relationship. But when you go too far, the fence is up, right? And, you know, I think it's just, like, a really good example. And it kind of, like, keeps me in check with, like, boundaries. And also, it really put me into the driver's seat. So I found myself complaining, oh, he is doing this, it's making me feel this. She is doing that, it's making me feel that. And then I think it was you too, where I'm like, and like my therapist too was like, no, then you have to say how you feel and like put up that wall, because we can't change the other person.
Nope.
We are not responsible for their actions. We're not responsible for their projections. We're not responsible for how they see us. But what we can do is stop that by withdrawing within and being like, this is not okay anymore. And it's like the simplest example I can give, because my mom knows I love her, but like sometimes my mom texts me all the time and I'm like, my hand is literally killing me. It's going to fall off. I did this yesterday. If you want to have a conversation or just like shoot the bull, come over. I cannot be on my phone. I cannot have my head down. And that was me. Because at first I was like, oh my God, my mom is so annoying. I'm like getting angry at her. It's not her fault.
But we love you. I know
we
you're
love
listening.
You. We know you're listening. It wasn't her fault. I'm like, she's at home. She wants to text. I'm getting angry at her. And I created this boundary. I was like, I can't be on my phone. Mm-hmm. If you want to chat while I'm cleaning, come over. And she did. Oh, I love you, Mom.
And I will say something to also boundaries. I feel like we kind of segued into boundaries here, but that's okay. I think that also a big part of boundaries is like boundaries create safety in the body, because when we don't know how to say no and we don't know how to respect our own boundaries or even figure out what they are, we're giving so much of ourself away that we're breaking trust within ourselves and we're breaking self-love.
And isn't that like people pleasing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's like, and in that people pleasing, right, if you actually want to get to the root of the people pleasing, it's the fact that we want to be accepted, we want to be loved, we want to be wanted, we're scared of not being enough. So we people please then in order to get their love, in a sense, in order to feel accepted, to feel wanted. But I feel like it's really hard. It's a really fine line.
It is. Because when I think of boundaries and people pleasing, I right away think of the word no.
Right.
Like, no, I don't want to do that. And I also recently was like, I read or heard something where people pleasing can also be sugarcoating.
Yeah.
It's like where you can't just say, no, I can't do that later. It's like you like fluff around it. That's people pleasing. You basically said yes, but not yes, and you didn't say no. So you just said whatever you thought they wanted them to what they want to hear.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my gosh, just like no. Just say no.
Yeah. That was a complete sentence.
No is a complete sentence.
Yes. And
I'm making a shirt.
Yes. No, yes. Yeah. Yes to the no.
Yes to the no.
And I think, too, for those of you listening who are struggling with how to even create boundaries, I think the first thing you want to do is really tune into your body and say, okay, this person is asking this of me, or I, am thinking of doing X, Y, and Z. how does that feel? Like, does it feel like calm and easy and fun and exciting? Or does it feel like, ooh, there's some anxiety and discomfort and there's something in me telling me no? And really start tuning into what your body is saying, because the more you can listen to your body, the more you can rebuild that self-trust and that self-love.
Yeah. And is this opportunity, person, or situation worthy enough of my time?
Yes.
Right? So if it's like engaging with another person, if someone keeps asking you out on a date, what is their value point? Is it worth it? Okay? Am I creating a boundary, or am I just saying yes because I'm bored or feel bad that they're going to feel bad, right? And then for like a job situation, it's like, is the travel worth it? Is my time worth it? Am I just saying yes because I've said yes a million times that I would work this gig, but right now I don't really want to? Like, you have to really like... I think it also comes with like, I think with like texting and just like technology and everything, we feel like we have to get back to someone right away. I think this also comes with like sitting in a feeling or emotion, right? Like, how is this going to feel?
Yeah.
If I say yes to this, and just being able to like, and I think that's a big boundary for me. I used to think that I have to answer clients and people back like that moment.
Yeah.
I leave people on red now, or, you know, like, or I don't swipe it so I remember to answer it. And it's really been helpful to be like, do I want to do X, Y, and Z that they just texted me about? And that's been really helpful.
Yeah. Also for me too, I think the boundary, especially because at one point, especially during COVID, I was working 7 days a week, and I was like overly there for all of my clients, because obviously the world for a lot of people felt like it was ending. So I feel like as a coach and as someone who's in the healing space, you want to show up and over deliver. And then I'm working till midnight. Sometimes I'm answering clients at 1 a.m. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I'm losing myself. And what really helped me, I don't even remember who talked to me about it, but they were like, Alex, you have to think that when you're constantly on and you're answering and you're always available and you're always doing these things, you're not able to actually give them the energy that they deserve because you're exhausted. And that was like a big aha moment for me, because I was like, you're right. Like, I need to actually have these boundaries of, okay, I'm going to pull back a little and I'm not going to answer you right away because I need to center myself. I need to be in a better space where I feel like I can fully show up for you and give you the response that's actually going to be most beneficial and be most helpful.
Yeah.
And I think that was like a big part of that.
So I have a question. So why do you think that like spirituality comes with this like light and all love and light type of, or like, what is spirituality to you that it's like linked with light and love? Because I know the stuff that we do, we're crying all the time.
All the time. I'm crying all the time now.
So it's like, where are people coming up with this like, oh, you know?
Yeah. Do you want to start this off?
It's just like, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but like, what is spirituality
just our opinions
to you?
on it. So I think, not to like blame social media on everything, but I think a lot of this misconception was breeded in that space and place. We see these beautifully, and guilty, we see these beautifully curated reels and posts, and it's just like, oh my God, it's so romanticized. The spiritual journey is so romanticized, and even like it's presented in this very superficial way at times, but in reality, no, like most ceremonies we go to, oh my God, we're crying most of the time. And
always
like
crying.
Really? Yeah, like really. And you retrieve going on. Like, you know, it's like when you really pull the curtain back, like the Wizard of Oz moment, it's, oh my God, it's like, oh my God, you're facing such harsh truths about yourself and the world around you. And you're not just, you know, pulling at like the bad fruit on the tree. You are like digging up the roots that have been there, and it's exhausting and it's hard, and
all the bugs.
Oh my God, it's such hard work, and this is why community is like so important, because you're at least, you know, you're doing it in community with people, so you feel supported and accountable. But I think that's where I think it's really with social media. And also the other thing too is that I think a lot of and this might trigger some people, so sorry, not sorry, but Sagittarius vibes.
We said we were going to be unfiltered, unedited. So.
The problem, too, is that there's a lot of spiritual mentors that use platforms in not an authentic way that are breeding these misconceptions that it's all about the cute Instagram feed and not about uncovering all the crap.
Right.
So I think it's also a lack of responsibility for those who are in these sacred leadership positions that are breeding this notion that it's not hard work, that it's all very romanticized and beautiful, yummy, like social media content. Coming from a content creator, like guilty for sure, but it's fine if you want to show the beauty of it, but then show like the darkness too, So that would be my answer for that question.
What's coming up for me also, kind of like piggybacking off of that, is I think with spirituality, so many people think, well, spirituality means I'm just going to manifest and say these affirmations and everything's going to be fine and everything's going to be great. And the thing is like affirmations and manifestation, yes, that is a big part of spirituality and it is beautiful. But if, let's say for you listening right now, right, I'm sure on some level, maybe you haven't, but I'm assuming you have tried affirmations or manifestation on some level, have watched the reels, have done some research. And if you actually have ever been frustrated of like, why aren't my affirmations working? Why aren't my manifestations working? It's because there are blocks there from your past that actually don't think you're worthy of what you're trying to affirm.
Something like this. Yeah, I love
manifest.
that. Yeah. No, yeah, you can continue. I'm just saying that I just saw something about that.
Yes, and that being such a big part of it. And then we get mad at ourselves, and then we beat ourselves up, and then we think, oh, this isn't working, and what's wrong with me? I can't be spiritual.
Or buy a new crystal.
Or you buy
a new crystal.
Yes.
The selenite will protect me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like,
boundaries.
yes.
No, you need boundaries.
Yes, and you actually need to look back and do the work from the trauma that happened, whether it's big T or little t trauma that happened that made you believe that you weren't actually worthy of the things you want to affirm. And when you can start going back, and that's like into the shadow, into the depth of who you are as a human, and we can work through that guilt, we can work through that shame, then that's when the affirmations and the manifestation and the love and light play a role. But again, it's like that roller coaster. The love and light's at the top of the roller coaster, but you gotta drop down before you can get up.
Oh, I'm going to say a word that's going to trigger Alex.
Yay.
So that also, for me, that comes with like, okay, so we just had the Taurus new moon. So a lot of manifestation with that, right? And specifically for Aquarius, it was about like home life and stuff. And there was like a little prompt, and it was like, you can manifest like your dream home, but you have to feel it with your 5 senses. And here I am, like pen to paper, and I'm like, am I really manifesting like a beach house? Like, who am I, right? Imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Am I worthy enough? And I know you've wanted to riff on imposter syndrome.
Yes.
So up to you if you want to do it now or
no,
for another
part 2.
Yeah, part 2. But like manifestation comes with, am I worthy enough? And you have to let go of ego and that imposter syndrome to really, I think, manifest and do all that stuff. So I was like, oh God, imposter syndrome. No, you gotta go there.
Yes, I've been dying to have an episode on imposter syndrome. I feel like we should maybe then like leave this until part 2.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, we should wrap it up.
Yeah. Any like last words?
Yeah, I just want to say one other thing to kind of wrap it up, and then you could lead us out. So the whole deal here, right, is to begin debunking this myth that the spiritual journey is just love and light. Not true. And hopefully you got some practical tips and tricks to kind of move you forward so you can embrace the duality that is the human condition and that is the spiritual journey, right? So that's just wanted to put a bow on part 1.
Yes.
Because we have part 2 coming.
Yes. And also just to like even tie back into the metaphor I was saying earlier with the car, right? And the sticker, start to become really aware of your indicators. When there is the anger, the sadness, the darkness, start to ask yourself, like, what am I feeling right now? Not with judgment, not with guilt, not with shame. And those might be the emotions that you're feeling.
And
saying,
be those things.
Yes. And give them permission to show up. And then just become aware of them. You don't have to do anything with them yet, but just become aware and start recognizing and remind yourself, be like, oh, Alex mentioned this. Like, these emotions are serving a purpose right now. What is the purpose they're serving? And the more we can start to see that our emotions are just the signal, we are not our emotion, we're the one experiencing it. We start to take our power back, and suddenly our life starts to shift.
Yep. No, I agree.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, to be continued, but I hope you guys got some juicy deliciousness out of this episode, and we appreciate your time, your energy. We're sending you so much love, and make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, send it out to your friends, and we will see you again soon. Part 2.
See you soon. Bye.